5th of December, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos, Hanukah.
Okay.
Oh. Well, anyway, so good morning, Lou. Chodesh
Good
Tov.
morning, Roy. How are you? Morning, Barry. Morning,
Morning, good morning, everyone. Good
Has
morning.
anybody got a good TV technician?
TV.
I've messed up all the connections at the back of our TV. And I can't follow the dog. I put it together once, but now I can't follow it for some reason.
You can't Google it? Repairs?
No, it's something to do with the connections. I don't know. All of a sudden the TV wouldn't play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, doesn't matter.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Happy Hanukkah. Okay, Mitzvah Hashem. A couple days of Hanukkah left. Good to see you all. Tell me, did we finish the last document? I can't remember. I'm just trying to think if we finished the last document.
No, I have this document here,
Right.
which is the Rav Amram Gaon.
Right.
So according to my notes, we got almost done with the first page. We didn't do the second page at all.
Okay. Let me see. I'll try and bring it on the screen. Do you want to begin? Let's see. That starts with the first reference on that document is, just remind me, please, Lou. Amram Gaon, right, of Amram Gaon, right. So now we went through the Prima Garden, Osi Basorasecha, Lomash, and the Gidi Magid. Okay, okay, I think have done the, we should be. Yes, okay, yeah, maybe let's start with the second page, which should be paragraph number 15. Let me put that on the screen. That'll be a good place to start. The second page of the document. Everyone have it there? It's on the screen now as well.
There it goes. Okay, we got it.
Okay, good. Number 15. This is the Tzitz Eliezer of Waldenberg. He was the Rav Rashi, the Mashgiach in the Beit Cholim in Shaarei Tzedek for many years. Yeah, he has many things on halacha and also Agarita. So he first starts with bringing the Gemara in Shabbos, of Chaf Aleph Amid Beis, which has to do with Hanukkah. Yeah, go ahead. Anyone like to volunteer to read?
Lou does.
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Barry.
No, we need you. We need you.
Isa Begamra Shabbos.
Yeah.
It's Begamra.
Yeah, it's brought in the Gemara and Daf in Shabbos. Daf Chaf Aleph Amid Beis.
My Hanukah de Sanu Rabbanan. Why how is it?
What, meaning what is Hanukkah?
Oh, what is Hanukkah? That is what is written about Hanukkah by the rabbis?
No, it's one quite, no, that's a territory. You more asked the question, my Hanukkah,
That's a question. Okay.
right? The Gemara wants to know what is Hanukkah. And the answer is the Tana and Rabbanan, we learn, the rabbis teach us as follows.
Okay, and what's the abbreviation?
The Chaf Hey, on the 25th of Kislev.
Oh, on the 25th of Kislev, Yomei de Hanukah. There, that's the days of Hanukkah. Tamnia. They begin. In
Tamna, that means 8. 8 days, and that's Aramaic for 8. So in Chaf Hey Kislev, there are 8 days of Hanukkah.
Okay, and then the next word is Anon.
Yeah, on these days,
Delo Limsefed Dehon
Lamotzfid. No eulogies.
Mospid. On these, there's no eulogies. Behon Vidalo Le His Anos Behon. What is this word Behon?
on them.
On them. So there's no eulogies and there's no hisanos means happiness.
Fasting. From kindness.
Oh, fasting.
No.
No fasting. Okay, so what is Hanukkah? The rabbis wrote on the 25th of Kislev. The days of Hanukkah, there's 8 days, and we don't eulogize and we don't fast on them.
So that's the basis of the beginning of what the answer is and what's Hanukkah. Now the Gemara is going to go and tell you why.
Shekesha nich naso Yevonim lehechal tamav. That the Greeks entered the temple courtyard, and they made impure kol hashmanim, all the oil shebehechal, that was in the hechal. Gavra Malchus Beis Chashmonai. That what is this Gavra?
When they overcame the Yevonim, the Malchus Beis Hashmonai.
When the Hashmonim overcame the Greeks, unetzachon bedako velo matzo ella pach echad. So they overcame the Greeks the Hashmonaim overcame the Greeks. And what is this word? Nitzchom?
Nitzel really means like triumph. They triumphed. Yes, I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, historically speaking, if I don't know if anyone got or read the pamphlet that they're putting out, Baruch Hashem, from Rav Milda this past Shabbos, that all had to do with Hanukkah. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or read it. If you didn't, it's worthwhile. It's a tremendous insight into the historical situation, and also to a person's own avoda in serving Kadosh Baruch Hu. But there he says at the very beginning that the miracle of Hanukkah took place really at the beginning of the war. It didn't take place at the end of the war. There were another 25, 30 years of battles that took place during the ensuing years, that they were successful in making an apparent quick victory over the Greeks and ousting them from the Beis Hamikdash. But and then Hashem gave them a simon that there would be more miracles to come. But there were another 25, 30 years of fierce and bloody battles that followed afterwards. And matter of fact, Matisyahu and all his sons died in battle during the next 25, 30 years. They never saw, as Rabbi Miller writes, they never saw the victory. They never really saw the final victory of the Greeks. They all died, and they, as you said, they were all in Gan Eden by then. But there was their Mesiras Nefesh that brought forth the ability of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, therefore, to do miracles for the rest of Klal Yisrael, and they eventually were Mitzliach. So it says the Nitzachon, and it was really, I think that you have to learn Pshat here, that the Nitzachon was in terms of the actual Beis Hamikdash, meaning that was the beginning of the end, but it was a long and hard battle and war that took place for many years afterwards. But that's what's being said over here, the Nitzachon, the victory over the Greeks in terms of the Beis Hamikdash.
I have a question about historically. It only mentions Matisyahu and his sons, but they did have armies, correct? I mean, it wasn't just him and his sons against 500,000 Greeks.
It's not clear to me exactly what the situation was. They originally started. It was only them. It was really only them that they started. And what happened in terms of afterwards, I guess they gathered people along with them as time was going on. Exactly, but it was never a real majority. As Rabbi Miller points out, really there was a large population of Jews that when Ezra came back after Purim, and they were allowed to come back. The Jews were allowed to come back to Eretz Yisrael and rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. So a large part of Klal Yisrael did not choose to come back to Eretz Yisrael. They chose to remain there in Bavel. And at the time of Hanukkah, when all these things were going on in Eretz Yisrael, there was many great yeshivas and Jewish communities in Bavel that were well established for the past over 300 years or so. And there were no persecutions at all in Bavel. The Greeks were not in control of Bavel at all, and there were no persecutions, and they could have just, as Rabbi Miller says, they could have, if they wanted just to pick up and leave, they could have just gotten themselves out of Eretz Yisrael, out of the battle zone, and simply gone to Bavel, and they would have been very well welcomed, and they would have been received with honors there in Bavel, and they could be happy to sit and learn Torah in Bavel. But they chose to purposely take on the suffering that would ensue, because when their revolt began, that's what they were in for. They weren't for fighting up against the Greeks and the kings and the Messiavim. And it was a very hard battle that took place, and no one was really willing to help them out with it. But I think as time went on, they did gather some people to help them. Exactly how many, I'm not sure.
But this was mostly like, so to speak, a guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, I would say
I mean,
so.
Lahavdil, like the colonies in America were greatly outnumbered by England. But you know, there's the small little groups which were not actually armies; they were just you know, armed citizens. They were able to, in the beginning, to be very successful.
Mm. Yeah, something like that. There was no organized army as far as I understood. But okay, let's continue.
What is this word badku?
Bacho, they checked from Bedika's comments. They checked. So they were checking to find some oil in anything that could have been remnants, any remnants of the base of Mikdash. Everything had been taken out. There was nothing left in the base of Mikdash. It was completely gutted by the Greeks. They took everything out. There was nothing left. There was no Mizbech, no menorah, no shulchan. Everything was completely gutted. And so they checked and they tried to find whatever they could find, and they in fact found the Pak Shemen. That's what the Kodesh Baruch had let them find.
When the Greeks found nothing, was that because the Jews hid everything away, or they were actually taken?
No, everything, as far as I understand, everything was taken from the base of Mikdash. It wasn't
By the
like
by the Greeks.
right, because or the Jewish Hellenists, whatever, that they allowed them
And this
to do.
was the Aron Kodesh. Everything was taken. The menorah and well, not the menorah. I mean, because they lit the menorah, right? So that was
No. I think first there was no menorah. They had to build a menorah. They didn't have any metal. They had to build the original menorah that they lit from was from wood. They lit it from wood,
wow.
and there was nothing. They had absolutely nothing there. It was very dismal. It was a very dismal place. But the Aaron, there was in the second bias, there was no Aaron. There were no Lucas in the Aaron as there were in the first. That was put into Geniza the time of the Korban bias Rishon.
So these traditions that the Aron Kodesh is hidden away somewhere underground under the Kotel is accepted.
From what I understand, it seemed to be accepted. But that was already from the time of the first bias, right? From the destruction of the first temple.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, I hear.
Yeah.
So they checked and they only found one jug of oil
With a seal.
that was resting.
Right.
Bechut mo. What's that word?
That's with the seal of the Kohen Gadol.
With the seal, shel Kohen Gadol, velo haya bo, ella lahadlik yom echad. And it only had enough to light for one day. Naasa bo nes, and there was a miracle. Bahad liku mimenu shmona yamim, and they lit from it for 8 days.
Right.
Lishna acheres kavom va'asom yamim tovim behalel v'hodah. Okay, so from Lishnei,
That's Lishana Acheres in the next year.
the next year, they established and they made
Right. Correct.
these good days for praising and for Thanksgiving.
Right. Yomim Tovim, mean festival days. They made these days festival days for praising and thanksgiving.
So Hanukkah is considered to be a Yom Tov?
Yep, it's considered to be a Yom Tov. Right. Some people say Good Yom Tov on Hanukkah. I think the Chazon Ish was knowing that he would say Good Yom Tov to people.
But not the halachas of Yom Tov.
No, there's nothing in terms of like being like the kedusha of Yom Tov in terms of the Lamed Tes Malachas. That's something not right.
Okay. Kol ha-mefarshim omdim al hakushi b'lashon hagemora.
Yes, that's right.
So all of the
Commentators.
commentators stand on the holiness,
The difficulty,
difficulty
the difficulty of the expression of the Gemara.
the difficulty in the expression of the Gemara, shoelet, that it asks, my Hanukkah. It's a difficulty that it asks my Hanukkah. V'chi lo yad o ad az ma ze Hanukah. And since we don't know until when this Hanukkah?
Not exactly like this. That all the Meforshim consider the difficulty of the expression of the Gemara that the Gemara asks, my Hanukkah. So because the Gemara asks seemingly a very simple, forthright question, my Hanukkah. What's the problem with that? Kilo yada ad az ma ze Hanukkah, as if it was not known up right now before him that it was Hanukkah. The Gemara seems to be like making a statement. We don't know what Hanukkah is, right? And it's difficult to assume that the Gemara didn't know what Hanukkah was, as he's going to explain further.
Hare lifnei zeh kavar hova mizeh. Behold, in accordance with this,
Lifnei, that means before this, meaning previously in the Gemara.
Before this, already, this obligation,
Kavar huv, it's already been brought. It's kavar huvav. It's been brought. Mizeh b'Gemara. I mean, if you look at the Gemara, right, when that statement, when that question, my Hanukkah arrives, if you look in the Gemara has already been dealing with many questions and details about Hanukkah itself. So it's perplexing why the Gemara, after discussing many different laws about Hanukkah, now the Gemara seems to choose my Hanukkah, a question my Hanukkah, as if it doesn't even know what Hanukkah is. But there's been discussing previously many different laws and halachas relevant to Hanukkah already.
okay,
Understood?
yeah. Is this sham or shame?
the Gemara Sham, in that Gemara over there.
over there. Dine ha Hanukah, the laws of Hanukah. Pelug Tassam shall Bet Shin and Bet Hey.
That's
Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel.
Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel.
So the Gemara discusses the laws of Hanukkah that are under dispute between Beis Shalom and Beis Shammai.
How to light the candles. Dispute on how to light the candles.
You start with one candle and go higher, like we do. That's Beis Hillel. Or to start with 8 and go lower, that would be like Beis Shammai.
Is that the only thing that they argue about?
Oh, the more it talks about other things in terms of the halachas that are discussed. It says Vedine Psilos Vishmenim, and it also goes into the details of the different laws for the wicks and the oils to be used for Hanukkah. So the basic question is, the Gemara interjects this question, this seemingly naive question about my Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah, in the middle of discussions of very detailed laws about how do you light the menorah. So obviously the Gemara must have understood that there was something called Hanukkah, and they were dealing with the laws relevant to that event or that occurrence or commemoration of Hanukkah. So why now, after being busy with talking about the various laws of Hanukkah, why do they interject the question about what is my Hanukkah? Why mention that right now in the middle of the whole thing? Because as if we don't know what Hanukkah is. We know very well what Hanukkah is. We've been discussing it in depth. So like if I would be giving you a shear in Hilchos Pesach, right? So I would be teaching you about chametz, making matzahs, about dalet koisos, and then in the middle I ask you a question. Well, what's Hanukkah? What's Pesach? What's Pesach? Strange.
But
Okay.
isn't it kind of like a what's the word? Rhetorical question?
Uh,
No, they're just opening up the opportunity for discussion.
Yeah, okay. I mean, true enough. Let's say it's that, but why do that in the middle of the discussion? If you want to ask at the beginning. Like if you remember the way the Gemara in Bracha starts, right? The Gemara in Bracha starts. The Mishnah says Amos Korin, right? Shema ba'arvis, right? When do you read Shema ba'arvis, right? At Marv, when are you supposed to read Shema in the evening? So the Gemara starts off and asks who says there's a din of Shema? Who says there's a halacha of Shema? Where do you know that there's a halacha of reading Shema bichlal? You want to know that when do you read it at Myriv? First, tell me that you have to read it bichlal, right?
Maybe what Hanukkah means is we're asking how does it stand in relation to everything else, to other festivals.
It could be.
Sort of like you've got all these laws and that. So how do they stack up against other festivals?
Right. That could be a possibility. We have to now look at what Rashi says. Let's see what Rashi explains. What does Rashi do with the question? How does he explain the question of the Gemara?
Rashi Zal Hargish Gimel
Gamkain.
Bezeh. Rashi Zal Hirgish Gamkain Bezeh. Rashi also was sensitive to this. Pierke, he was sensitive. Rashi was also sensitive to this. Rashi realized that this question, that my Hanukah needs a deeper explanation.
Upeirash shekivanat Hagemora show let my Hanukah. Rashi was also sensitive to this, and he explained the intention of the Gemara when it asked, "What is this? What is this Hanukah?" Al eze nes kivao. Concerning this miracle, it was
No, on which miracle did they establish Hanukkah?
I mean, for the sake of which miracle was a Hanukkah established? Because of. So Rashi's sensitive to this question that the Gemara, when it's asking my Hanukkah, it can't be asking simply tell me what Hanukkah is all about. All right, that obviously the Gemara knew what Hanukkah. I mean, seriously speaking, if you were living there at the time of the Gemara with Rabbi Kiba, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Chisda, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and Rabbi Shimi ben Reish Lakish, those are the Amorim already. Don't you think they would know what Hanukkah is all about? Who would be so silly to ask a question, my Hanukkah? They're not in learning Aleph Beis and Cheder anymore, right?
So they're basically saying, what's the essence of Hanukkah?
Well, what do you think Rashi means by this one? This is a quote. Al ez and ez kover. That's a quote of Rashi.
There were several miracles that took place. There's a miracle of the battle and the miracle of the oil. Which was the Iker mitzvah that they used to establish as the reason for establishing the holiday? That's the question.
Right. That's how Rashi understands the question. I mean, the Gemara wants to know, right? We're doing all these things. Okay, we're doing these things, and we're obviously celebrating something here that took place. So, what is the miracle that we're celebrating? And doing all these things about. So now the Tzitzi Elezi is going to explain Rashi. He's going to go further with Rashi, and he's going to elaborate on what Rashi is explaining.
V'tzarichim lifrash lefarish. And we need to explain.
Yes.
What is Reish Lamed?
Rotzalomer.
That means to say. Meaning he's trying to explain what Rashi means. He's explaining what Rashi means to say.
Okay, so we need to explain what he means to say, she hasha'ila he, that this question, im kavao al nitzchon hamilchama.
Hamilchama.
That they ask that this is asked if they established it on the war, on the battle,
victory, the success, nitzchon, the success,
on the success of the battles.
Oh, keep going.
Oh, al nes pach Hashemin, or on the miracle of the jug of oil. Umevores Hagemora shekavo al nes pach hashemen. What is this umavoris?
And it's
And they answer, they explain.
yeah, explained in the Gemara, right?
In the Gemara, that they established it on the miracle of the jug of oil.
Keep going, you haven't finished the sentence.
Shedalak Shmona Yamim. That it burned for 7 days, for 8 days.
Right. So the Gemara's explanation is that the miracle that Hanukkah was fixed to celebrate was the miracle of the oil burning for 8 days.
Ulechein asa om yamim tovim b'halel uvahoda. And therefore, they made a Yom Tov for praise and thanksgiving. Vikad mefarash Rashi.
Ukidim Meforish. As
And
Rashi explains, as Rashi explains.
as Rashi explains, she'asom yamim tovim likros halel ule omer al hanisim behoda'ah.
Birkos Hadah, Modim. We say Alanissim and Modim.
Those are the two things we were supposed to be saying during Hanukkah, right?
What do you see, Modim?
Hodah, Birkos Hadah is Modim Anachnu.
That's what we say the Al Nisim. The Al Nisim comes in Modi, right? After Modi, we say Al Nisim.
Yeah, but what about it goes into a very long description of the battles. That's
Right.
included. It's
Right.
not just the lights. This is not
Right.
the oil.
Okay, he's gonna explain further. That's a very good point. He's gonna follow up on this. You're asking the question. He's gonna have to explain. He has to, because of your question, Barry, he has to explain furthermore.
Okay.
Hold on, you'll see.
Okay. V'yesh adayin lehavin deha ba'al hanasim
Alanissim.
and there is still to understand how in Al Hanisim lo muschar klal nes pad
Paz.
hashemen.
Right. Yesh Yadayim Lahavim, the Habal Hanisim, meaning the Baal Hanisim, that means the author, those who composed the Al Hanisim, right? Right. The ones who composed the Al Hanisim, what we say, the Al Hanisim.
I think it's
So it's Baal Hanisim, the writer.
Is it that or is it Be Alanissim? In Alanissim, Lo Mazkir, Lo Muskar Klal Gam Pak Shemen. You don't mention the Shemen at all in Alanissim. Is it? Can't you just read it as Be Alanissim? In Alanissim, we don't mention the oil.
You could read it that way too. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also good. Yeah, that might. You could say, yeah. Why not? Yeah. That Be Al Hanisim, in the Al Hanisim, you don't mention any mention of the Pak Shemen. The nature of the Pak
Right.
Shemen.
Right. So what's the greater miracle?
So according to the Rashi, according to Gemara, right? The Pak Shemin was the miracle, right? That's what the Gemara says, that because of the burning of the oil for 8 days, they were convey the holiday to for Hodas and Halil. But in the Alanisim, right, there's apparently there is a reference to it, but it's certainly not a direct reference. Not a direct reference to the days of the oil.
Ela kasuv shekavo shmonas yemei Hanukah. Rather, it is written that they established 8 days of Hanukkah. Elu, these 8 days of Hanukkah, lahodos, excuse me,
Gesund.
thank you, to thank ulahalel and to praise Lishmo Hagadol, his great name.
So obviously, the 8 days is in reference to the miracle of the oil.
Right.
Otherwise, it would be like Purim. We had a battle. It was a 1-day battle, so to speak, and that was it. So we have 1-day Purim.
Right.
So here, the 8 days must be in recognition of the oil.
Right.
So we don't have to mention it. Why is there 8 days?
Good. The 8 days is clearly because of the miracle of the oil.
Right.
Good.
But that ignores the word Ella.
Why is that?
Because Ella means rather. They don't mention, it says that they don't mention at all the jug of oil. Rather, they mention the 8 days.
Right.
Why does it
Instead
say
of, in other words,
rather?
you don't have to mention the oil because the 8 days is the mentioning.
Then it shouldn't say rather. It should say they don't mention the jug of oil. They mention the 8 days.
That's
It
good
shouldn't
enough.
say rather. Rather means it doesn't do that. It does this instead.
No. It means instead of mentioning the oil directly, we have the 8 days. I think that's what it's saying. We don't mention the oil. Rather, instead of mentioning the oil, we just have 8 days observance.
But we need to know why 8 days? Where does 8 days come from?
Because the oil lasted 8 days.
And then, but we need an explanation. We need a reason for that. We don't mention that. Al-Anisim says we have a holiday for 8 days, but it doesn't give a reason for specifically for 8 days.
Because because the oil lasted 8 days.
Right,
But it's not talking about it. It doesn't. But it's pulling. You're pulling 8 out of. As far as Al-Anisim is concerned, you're pulling the 8 out of thin air. There's no explanation in Al-Anisim itself why it's 8. There's a reason in Al-Anisim why there's a yontif, because we had the miracle of the battle. But it doesn't say why. Why do we do it for 8 days? Why not 6? Why not 12?
Well, where does it say?
The war clearly lasted more than 8 days. Okay, so 8 is, as far as Al-Anisim is concerned, 8 is a random number. It gives no reason for picking 8. That's the question. Why did we pick 8? It has nothing. 8 itself has nothing to do with the war.
Of course not, because the war was a separate miracle.
But
We
that's
say
what
that the 8
Al-Anisim is
days
talking
is because
But
Don't we say-
Al-Anisim is talking about the war. Al-Anisim specifically talks about the war and says,
Right.
because of the war, we established a holiday for 8 days. Where does 8 come from? That's the question we're asking.
Where do we know that the oil lasted 8 days?
It's in the Gemara.
Okay.
It's
so
not
we
in
know.
Al-Anisim. But
Right.
then if Al-Anisim is because of that, it should say somewhere in Al-Anisim, we celebrate 8. We have a holiday for the war and we celebrate for 8 days because of the oil. It should say both things, because 8 days comes out of no place as far as Al-Anisim is concerned. if I could look at Al-Anisim and I could say I can make it for 4 days, I can make it for 12 days, I can make it for some number of days, but I have to, why am I picking 8? It should give me a reference that I'm picking 8. And we pick 8 because of the oil. And if it said it because we picked 8 because of the oil, tying the 2 miracles together, then Raish's kasha goes away. There's no question. Now we know why. We have both of them. We're celebrating the war and we're celebrating the oil. That's why we celebrate for 8 days. It's all tied together. It doesn't tie the 2 miracles together into a unified idea that we're talking about.
Because we're lighting for 8 days. That's
It's not giving it.
Yeah. But again, when that's what we do. Our lighting the menorah is one thing, but when we're doing Hodah v'Halel, our Hodah v'Halel is nothing to do with the menorah. The menorah, the lighting menorah, is something is a completely different mitzvah, right? Included in the lighting of the menorah is presuming Nisa, and that could be understood to be part of Hodah v'Halel. But when we say Al-Anisim and we say Halel, right, that is our avoda. That's what our mitzvah that we're supposed to be doing in terms of thanking Kadosh Baruch Hu for the miracles that He did for us, right? So the question is, if the Gemara is so concerned with the nace, the miracle of the oil, so why shouldn't Al-Anisim somewhere somehow reflect that significance? And it doesn't. I mean, at best, it is a very vague hint of the whole thing at the very end of Al-Anisim, that there were madlik Neros, but that it's a very, very vague reference. You know, if you want to do Persuming Nisa, you should really say Hashem did such a great miracle for us. That's like on Passover, on Lel Pesach. You mention each one of the Esamakos, Dam, Savreded, Kinim. You just don't say it, you know. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu, He changed nature. You don't just say that He changed nature. That's a very vague reference to who knows what. You say no, Dam, Savreded, Kinim, Arev, Debrishkim.
It's not vague. It's very clear. It's very clear that the lighting was a miracle. The event surrounding the lighting by the Hashmonaim was a miracle.
Yeah, but again, all it says in Al-Anisim, V'hidluk neros b'chatzeros kadshecha, right? That they lit neros, and it has nothing. There's nothing. There's no. What's miraculous in that statement? Anything miraculous in that statement?
The Gemara says there is.
Yeah, but we're not everyone's learning Gemara. Everyone's saying Al-Anisim in shul, in benching. Everyone's saying, even the kids are saying that, but no one's not. How many people are learning Gemara?
No, but we know we don't have to
Hallel,
learn.
in the Hallel that we said Hallel for the last 7 days, right? Is there any mention of the miracle of the oil in Hallel?
Barry, there's even better question for you.
Okay.
Hanukkah is not mentioned in Talmud Yerushalmi at all. Okay, so before the days of the Tanoim, they didn't learn Hanukkah. There was no Hanukkah in the Gemara.
At the time that the Gemara was written, there was no Hanukkah.
No, there was no mention of it in the Gemara.
Okay.
It's not in Yerushalmi. It's only in the Bavli.
Right. So what does that prove?
Okay, but we only know the story of the 8 days because of the story in the Bavli. What did they do about in the times of Yerushalmi before the Bavli existed?
Because they wanted, because the nature of that miracle of the Hanukkah lights is hidden from us.
Explain.
It's such a great miracle. It's such a great miracle that it's beyond explanation. It's a secret. It's something that we know happened, but it's beyond mortal understanding.
And the Esher Makos aren't? And the Esher Makos aren't?
What do you mean Esher Makos aren't?
We talk about them all the time. I mean, you know, they're beyond understanding. The splitting of the Red Sea is beyond understanding. I
Right.
mean, Hashem does things for us all the time that we don't understand.
Because, but there's Hashem doesn't want us to dwell on certain miracles. The whole
Barry, if what you're saying is true, then Badafka, why are we dwelling on the miracle of the lights? If he didn't want us to dwell on it, he wouldn't talk about it.
but we're observing it, but we're not dwelling on the secret.
Yeah, well, yeah, but again, the debate, the basic question, just to understand the basic question is, if that was the whole according to the Gemara, Shabbos, in the Bavli, that Hanukkah was fixed and established because of the nace of the oil, right? You would expect when we say our Hodah v'Halel to Kadosh Baruch Hu, we should mention something about, there should be some direct mention about that. You would expect that there should be some direct mention of that, and there's not.
Not necessarily, because we mention Hallel in Yontif davening, and the Hallel itself doesn't mention chumitz, and it doesn't mention other Hallel, so to speak, is is usable for everything. Hallel, I mean, the fact that Hallel, when we say Hallel, that we don't mention Chanukah or whatever oil is not a proof, because we daven Hallel in Yontif, and it doesn't mention in Hallel Yontif. We have we have the davening itself to mention it. The whole point is this. I think the answer is found in the fact, your question, your challenge to me can be answered by the fact that the miracle of the war, which dwells great length in Al Anisim, is not necessary, can be explained not in terms of a miracle. It was just a bunch of guerrilla warfare guys who knew how to fight, and they were fighting against Greeks who were far away from home, and they weren't fighting for their land. They were stationed far away, and so they got whipped. And you can explain the Vietnam War that way. You can explain the Korean War that way. How did the United States lose all these wars? Because we didn't have the heart to fight, and small armies defeated the great United States. You can explain it just by normal, human events.
Okay, so but is that in?
So my question to you is why dwell on all of the battles? Of course we were going to win. You have people living in their own land, and their families and their wives and children were in great danger. Of course they're going to rise up and fight to the end. And the Greeks were, they wanted to go home.
But Barry, that didn't happen all the time, because we didn't win in 67.
What?
We didn't win when the Romans came. You could say the same thing when the Romans came. We should have won. What was the problem? We didn't win. I thought you meant
1967.
No. When the Romans came, we should have won then also, when we didn't. So there's no reason to expect that we would have won when the Greeks came. 200 years later, when it happened again, we didn't win.
Eventually, you're based on human military events. We're going to lose. Of course, we're going to lose.
So we could have lost it. We could have lost when the Greeks came just as easily.
But okay,
it was not a given that we were going to win that war.
No, it's not a given. But the fact that I'm just saying that the fact that we did temporarily win, or temporary for 20 years, whatever, the fact that we temporarily won can be explained by just normal human military adventure. That's all.
You could. I mean,
I'm not impressed that that they beat a bunch of soldiers who were pushed into the war, who were involuntarily, thrown into the war.
Well, what
How
are you gonna
come
do,
nobody-
Barry? What are you gonna do?
But
What are you
Barry,
gonna
how
do
come
against-
nobody else managed to beat the Greeks? They conquered lots of territory and we're the only ones that beat them. Everybody else had the same issues of being enslaved and captured and fighting for their homeland, and we're the only ones that beat them.
That most of the people didn't fight like we did, by the way. They gave in right away.
But they had the same. They were under the same. They were being conquered. They were being turned into slaves. They were being oppressed. What's the difference? Why?
The
Okay.
difference is because we have a schus from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Well,
I mean, we have a
okay.
schus.
All
Hashem.
right, gentlemen, thank you very
Yeah,
much. I have
Then
to
you have-
get going
We'll
now.
we'll
All right.
continue
Stop.
tomorrow, Mr.
This is
Shem.
going in circles anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roy. We'll see you this after. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you
Okay.
tomorrow.